Well, welcome everyone to another Jedi webinar. This is Joy, Director of the Women's Business Center. And let's all start with a deep breath because we are dedicating today to you, the you in business, which is so important to succeed. And the topic of today's webinar is mindfulness at work. We are so blessed and lucky to have a Siskiyou County resident with us to really help us train our attention so it works for us, not against us, so we can get more done and get it done productively. So Kristen Stroud, welcome to the webinar and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Joy. My pleasure.
Well, I've heard you speak a few times. I always walk away with more information, inspiration, and practical tools and skills to calm myself when I get overwhelmed. And I know you'll be doing more of that with us here at Jedi on the webinar and some upcoming workshops. So we'll talk about the workshops at the end of the webinar, but I do want to give you a formal introduction, Kristen, and let people know that we truly are honored to have you. You are a personal professional effectiveness coach and a darn good one at that. Kristen is also a mindfulness trainer, a certified Hakomi practitioner. She has many talents. She's an amazing writer, copywriter, and she's a pretty awesome mom at that. She loves the outdoors and has a background actually in forestry. So Kristen, you bring so much depth and wisdom to your work, and thanks again for being here.
Wow, thanks, Joy. That's quite an introduction. I hope I live up to it.
Oh, you will, I have no doubt.
Thank you.
For those of you listening in, yes, it's a webinar. I know it's not live, but thank God for high tech. There are some of you who are coming in from all over the 4 counties that we serve. And I really recommend, if you can and you're willing, just focus in. We are expecting about a 40-minute webinar, so you are going to have a chance to probably do some kind of concentration or deep breathing. You might want to take notes. You might want to think really deeply how this applies to you in your life. If you have questions, please notice on your control panel there's a little arrow that says questions, and you can type in questions and I will ask them of Kristen at the end of the webinar. If you have technical questions for me, go ahead and type them in there as well. We already had a couple hellos, and so hello back, we're glad you're here. And if you want to minimize the control panel, just hit that little orange arrow as well. So this webinar is brought to you by the Women's Business Center at Jedi, where potential becomes prosperity. We work with many of you. Some of you might be new to our services, but we absolutely love to help people succeed in their businesses. And we do that through training and classes and workshops and financial consultations. We can work with you one-on-one. We can also work with you in the classes and workshops, and we'll give you a highlight on those at the end of this webinar, tell you a little bit more about how we can help you access capital or plan your business, or if you are in business, maybe expand what you're already doing. Okay, well, Kristen, I think it's all yours now.
All right, thank you, Joy. Great to be here with Jedi and the new Women's Business Center. Congratulations on taking that over. I know you bring so much energy and passion to what you do, so you're a great asset. Luckily, we have you here in Siskiyou County, but then your work will expand out to these other 4 counties in Northern California. So I'm really pleased to be part of that. So here we are today. Welcome to everyone. So glad you could join us. Where we are here in Mount Shasta, it's kind of a rainy day, so a good day to focus inward, focus into our inside experience. And that's really what mindfulness is. So we're going to look at what it is, how it works, because I really enjoy understanding the neuroscience, and I think that helps you to be more dedicated to practicing. So give you a little bit of a sense of why practicing can really benefit you today and for the years to come, and how to get started, what are some next steps that you can take. So let's dive in. And Joy, again, will be recording your questions, so feel free as we go along to send those to Joy, and then she'll pass those on to me. So I'm assuming you're on this call because you're busy, and business, if you're in business or some other kind of work, tends to get pretty distracting. There's so many things to focus on. There's emails and phone calls, and just even trying to take care of yourself and get exercise and clean the house and do the dishes and watch the kids and take care of older aging parents. So our modern world is very, very busy, and so how do we maximize our effectiveness and our attention to our day when we've got so much coming at us? So I can imagine that you've got a lot on your plate, even just to take out an hour of your day today to listen to this webinar. So the question that I have for you is, how well does your attention really match your attentions from day to day? Are you getting to the things that are really important, or do you get sidetracked and distracted? So getting more clear about what your intentions are and then training your attention so that it can work for you. So I know some of my intentions in business and in my personal life is to be more effective, to be more happy and more balanced. I'm in the service business, so that's really important to me, and to do it with integrity. So you can think about what your intentions are as you come to this course. Maybe they're more personal, you know, to be more responsive in your relationships, or to be more kind to yourself. All of those can be incorporated into a mindfulness practice, not just the work you, but the home you. So I like to look at both of those parts because they all contribute to your effectiveness in your satisfaction in life. So if you want to take a minute right now to kind of focus in on what your intentions are today in learning more about mindfulness, or maybe just refreshing what you already know. I hope that I'm not repeating things that you already know, but just reinforcing them and making you feel like there's more of a reason to practice. So as we look at our day at work and at home, again, how well do our actions support our goals? Do we actually follow through on the things that are important to us, on our vision, on our mission of our business perhaps? Or do we get sidetracked and then those things kind of get away from us? So I really want to help you to go in the direction that you want to go with clarity and intention. But we know that there's lots of stuff that gets in the way, particularly stress, and I have a whole nother course on stress awareness, and we're going to be covering that in a workshop I'll be doing in May at Jedi here in Mount Shasta. A lot of people have a sense that there's not enough time. That can be a real stressor for people. Or they can get caught up in the, the daily barrage of texts and emails and kind of getting caught up in the media that's in their lives. Or maybe it's something inside of you. You tend to be a worrier, or you have a little bit of anxiety, and you can't sleep at night because your mind is racing. Or something happens, during the day, and you can't let it go. You keep thinking about it and dwelling on it. Or there's something coming up that you kind of get tunnel vision about it, and it kind of eats you up. So these are the types of interference that keep us from being calm and clear and focused and intentional. And there are ways to train ourselves to not go down the rabbit hole, to not be so hijacked by what's happening outside of us or what's happening inside of us that we lose track of what really matters, what's really important to us. So I would like to use the word mindfulness to describe that. It's really about being here in the moment and really experiencing it fully in an open, kind of curious, receptive, even compassionate and non-judgmental way. And I'm not saying that's easy. It's a path, it's a journey, it takes practice, but it's definitely worth going for. And the more we acknowledge that that's what we're going for, the more capable we are of actually becoming that and living that. So it's really kind of like a way of being in the world, a way of responding rather than reacting. And like I said, it's not easy, but with practice, we can get better and better and better at it. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about some of the ways that we can do that, and what are some of the obstacles that keep us from being in the moment, that keep us from being curious and responsive instead of reactive and in worry mode or anxiety mode, or just feeling rushed and confused. So as we train in mindfulness through different practices, we're increasing the strength of our attention so that we actually have a choice. Attention can be like a focus, like a laser, and maybe you're the kind of person that you can sit down and totally key into what you're doing and let everything else go away. Or maybe you're the kind of person that your attention is all over the map and it's hard for you to choose one thing. Let me remind you, there is no such thing as multitasking because your attention is wandering all over the place. So what we want to do is look at where our attention is and train it so that it becomes more and more of a choice of where we're putting our attention. Because we know that attention is the tool for self-mastery. So people who have developed this skill of attention or have it naturally have more self-awareness, which enables them to respond to what's happening inside of them with more wisdom and compassion. And it gives them more self-control, which is really how you want to be in your business, particularly at work, so that you can respond to an angry customer or a disappointed client or some other challenge that comes up. You may have lots of orders going out, and there may have been a mix-up on that. You don't want to yell at your distributor. You want to be effective and calm, cool, and I like to say calm, clear, and connected as you meet the challenges of your day at home, in your personal relationships, and at work, at business, or wherever you work. So the studies show that this type of self-mastery, I like to call it, is the best long-term measure of success. There have been studies that have taken place over the course of the lifetime of people, particularly children. They looked at children in a marshmallow study, maybe you've heard of it, and the researcher said, okay, I'm going to give you a marshmallow, and then I'm going to leave the room. And if you can wait until I come back, I will give you another marshmallow. But if you can't, then you just get one. And believe it or not, the kids that were able to delay gratification and not eat the marshmallow, they looked at their lives 30 years later, and guess what? They tended to be healthier, wealthier, and happier, which, you know, that's a hard thing to measure, but in general, they were more successful. So this isn't just a nice thing. It's actually something that we can strengthen in our neural circuitry, and I'm going to tell you how that works. And so there's no reason to feel bad about yourself if you don't feel like you have a lot of self-control, because it's something that you can grow. It's a learned skill. And you may have it more in one aspect of your life. For instance, you know, you may be really good at getting out and getting exercise, but then you fall down when it comes to something else. Or somebody else may be really good at, you know, self-control at work, but then in their personal life, you know, they may not have as much self-control. So it really varies across the spectrum, and you're not stuck where you are. So the reason this is so important is because there's a sort of a super highway between the body and the mind, or the brain, and all the neural circuitry is always running. It's always transferring information. And so as we start to practice mindfulness, it's not just about the mind. It's kind of a myth that, you know, you're going to sit down and you're going to get rid of all your thoughts and then you're going to be enlightened. You know, it doesn't work that way. And so we want to bring in the body because the body has got a lot of information, and it's always coming up into the mind, and the mind is always thinking and generating lots of crazy thoughts. Don't believe everything you think. So what we want is for them to work together, be more integrated and more connected. And we know from the research that people who have this really high connectivity between the mind and body are the most resilient and the most able to withstand discomfort, particularly pain. They've done studies where they shocked people. So this super highway is what we're developing when we practice mindfulness, and it gives us that self-mastery over our body regulation, emotional balance, all the things that make us able to regulate fear response and be more empathic. It's a really powerful way to develop ourselves for all that we want to do in our lives. So where does it happen? It happens in the brain. Everything that happens to us is basically kind of monitored and modified by the brain. And when I say brain, I mean the whole nervous system, you know, the autonomic nervous system. And so if you look at this picture of the brain, if you're with me here, the outer pink part is called the cerebral cortex. And that's the most recent part of the brain. And right up in front, towards your forehead, so if you're looking at the picture, it would be the left side in the front, And that area is called the mid-prefrontal cortex, which you maybe have heard about. You've heard that teenagers don't develop their mid-prefrontal cortex until they're 25 or so, and that's why they're a little bit, there's no one in the control tower, so to speak. This part of the brain is sort of the control panel of the brain. And when we practice either breathing or meditation or other awareness practices, we're actually strengthening and growing that part of the brain. And as you look at where it's located, it actually has the capacity to influence what you see in the middle is the pink area, the limbic system. If you see that little arrow, and that's where we have urges and desires and fear. The amygdala is here. Maybe you've heard of that, the alert system in the brain. And so when we're running on the limbic system, we don't have a lot of self-control. That's why you look at a toddler. You know, they don't have a developed prefrontal cortex that can regulate urges and desires and high emotional states, or even the fear system, the amygdala. And so as we practice these awareness trainings or mindfulness trainings, we're actually connecting those two parts of the brain so that we have more fibers actually growing between those parts of the brain. And even down lower, the brain stem, you see at the very bottom, is like the root of the brain, the oldest part of the brain. You may know that as the reptilian brain. That's where we have things like respiration and all those involuntary things like heart rate. And even the mid-prefrontal cortex can even regulate that so that you feel less stressed, you feel more calm, you feel more capable and competent to meet the challenges in your day without overreacting and blowing a gasket, whatever that looks like for you. You know, maybe for you it's withdrawal, or maybe for you it's, you know, getting angry. Let's look at that. What are those kinds of behaviors that go with that? So as we move through these mindfulness practices, we're actually changing the neurocircuitry in our brain. Just by working with our mind and body, we're changing ourselves to be more resilient and be more able to meet our world. So we go from autopilot, these automatic habits and patterns, which help us to do things that we don't have to remember how to do every day, like driving a car, but we can actually choose better when we're more aware of what those habits are. We can become more intentional, like we talked about at the beginning, to go after what we really want and not just have these impulsive behaviors that take us down the rabbit hole, whether it's, you know, eating or speaking out of turn or not doing the things that we really want to do. And of course, we become more responsive as we get more self-control and more self-mastery, so that we are more effective with our clients, with our customers, with ourselves, especially with ourselves, so that we're not always criticizing ourselves, but being more compassionate towards ourselves. So, shall we give it a try? I know you're probably somewhere, you might be at your office or at work, but let's see if we could do a little mindfulness training right here and now. We could call it I like to call it a 2-minute time in. So if you would, if you're sitting down, just getting grounded in your chair, perhaps, and notice that your feet are touching the floor. They're supported by the floor. Find your seat where your body makes contact with the chair. And notice any tension that you find in your body. You might do a scan up your legs from your feet to your knees. Just tuning into the body now. Noticing what you find from the knees to the hips. Just really tuning inside now. Noticing if that's hard for you, that's okay. Just notice. Putting your attention now into your torso. Coming into the pelvis, all the bones of the pelvis, the lower belly. Up into the mid-torso, up the diaphragm and the back, the mid-back. And up into the upper torso, the rib cage, the heart and the lungs. Just really tuning into your body just as it is. Coming up into the shoulders now. Noticing the tension here. Breathing into the shoulders. And relaxing on the out-breath, if that's possible for you. From your fingertips up through your hands and wrists, lower arms, upper arms. From your fingertips to your shoulders, just tuning into your arms as you're resting in your lap or your sides. Coming up into your throat and your neck. Breathing here, breathing into your throat. Noticing any tension, seeing you can relax that now. And even coming up into your head, all around the outside of the head, the back of the head, the sides and the top of the head, the scalp. Breathing here, breathing into the face, relaxing your face if you can. Sometimes there's tension in the jaw, so relaxing the jaw as much as you can. Relaxing your cheeks and forehead. It's as though you're turning inward with your eyes, softening your gaze a little bit. Just going inside, scanning for tension, and then any other sensations that you feel, just being aware of those. Being aware of your breathing. Breathing is a really good focal point for tuning inward. So maybe you have experience with breathing practices. Really good for the nervous system to slow down the breath. But as a start, you can just notice your breath. You don't have to change it or fix it. Just notice whoever it is for you right now. Notice your posture. Are you leaning forward or back? Are you really centered over your sits bones so that you can be alert and relaxed? And perhaps you've noticed that thoughts pop in as you sit still. Could be, wonder how long this is going to last. Or it could be, wonder if I'm doing this right. So just noting thoughts and then letting them go, but knowing that they'll come back. That's part of the deal. And any feelings that you're noticing, could be some relief, taking a little time in, could be more boredom or anxiety. And again, you can just note the feeling. Just naming it can actually give it less power over you. Not that we're trying to change our feelings, but just be with them in a non-judgmental, sort of compassionate, curious way. Okay, so that's a little taste of mindfulness here in this webinar, which is a different form of connecting. So I hope you're feeling connected a little bit more to yourself, your body. It's a really easy way to relax. Maybe you notice how you're feeling. A little different than maybe when you started just a couple of minutes ago. But where does your attention go? When you sit and sit quietly like that, is your mind calm and tame? Or does it wander? If you're like everybody else, I'm guessing that it wanders. And it doesn't always wander to a good place. Because, unfortunately, we are wired for scanning for danger and remembering threats. So that's one of the reasons why it's hard to be so calm and compassionate and all those positive things, because we're wired to survive. And so if we didn't, in the past, we might get eaten by the tiger. So we do have to overcome a bit of a negativity bias. And as Rick Hansen likes to say, he's a neuropsychologist, says we're Velcro for negative and Teflon for positive. So we're going to talk a little bit about how can we overcome this negativity bias. If you look at the news, it's all negative, right? What do you remember from your day? The thing that went wrong, usually. We don't remember all the things that went well. So we actually have to work harder to remember the good, or take in the good, as Rick Hansen likes to say. So that's a mindfulness practice in itself. So what we're looking at is the difference between the low road, which is we're wired for, fight, flight, freeze, defending against those threats, that limbic area, the feelings, urges, and desires, versus what this is all from Daniel Goleman's emotional intelligence, the high road, where we can have awareness, self-control, and pause and plan. This ability to pause and reflect is really the hallmark of mindfulness, one of the hallmarks of mindfulness training. So that's what we're shifting from the low road to the high road, which most of us do pretty well all the time, but we do slip and we do fall back, and so we can go even further down the high road. So I mentioned, the wandering mind, that the mind is going to do these things that are automatic and true for everyone. We tend to evaluate what's wrong with me, what's wrong with today, what's wrong with my job, etc., etc. We compare ourselves. So we really need to train ourselves out of the default mode to be more attentive to what we want to focus on. And so, as I like to say, awareness training brings its own rewards, and we need to have tools in order to do that. So the tools that I like to focus on are attention. And again, we can use it like a laser or like a floodlight. We don't always need laser focused attention. And curiosity instead of criticism. So we all tend to have a self-critic. I know I do. I bet you do. And it's not a really healthy way to work. And actually, there's research that shows that's what causes a lot of procrastination and inhibition and a lack of motivation. And compassion. There's a lot of research now that we actually benefit more from compassion towards ourselves than criticism. So these are the tools that I think are really essential to developing your mindfulness practice. And there are lots of things you can do, or probably already do, to actually strengthen this connectivity between the mind and the body, to become more conscious and more aware and have more self-mastery. And I'd like to focus on meditation because that's the one that has the most research. But all of these are really great practices for that mind-body connectivity that we talked about. So the one that has the most research is the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Program out of the University of Massachusetts Medical School. And what they found, they've been studying this since the 1970s, is that just for 15 minutes a day for 8 weeks, you begin to see these neurological changes that I've been talking about and really generate some whole person health. It affects your physical health, your immune system. Certain diseases really benefit from mindfulness training. It affects your emotional health, makes you more emotionally responsive and less reactive, and it affects your mental health, making you more clear, and it overall increases your resilience to stress. So a really powerful tool. I do have some free resources for that if you want me to share those with you. But just to show that there's a lot of research here and a lot of benefits. And one of the big benefits is when you're meditating, let's say you can do it for 15 minutes a day. Maybe you need to find a place to do that. Can you think of a place where you could sit like we just did at your house or in your car if you don't feel comfortable doing it in your house? Or maybe you already go to a meditation practice, or maybe not. But you're actually squirting some really good chemicals onto that limbic area, that urges and desires and fear area. You get some good GABA, which is a calming neurotransmitter. You actually grow new neurons. You get some brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So you're really doing yourself a favor every time you sit. And let's say you can only sit for a minute at first, or 2 minutes. I say start where you are, and don't feel like you have to do 15 minutes a day. That might be really hard for you. But you could set a timer for 2 minutes and just reward yourself for doing it at all. Reward yourself for even being on this call and thinking about, how am I going to bring more mindfulness into my daily life? You will become more flexible. So when things happen at work or at home that you don't like, you can deal with them. You can say, "Ooh, I really don't like that." Labeling it, name it to tame it. But then deciding how you're going to respond rather than going into some of your old habits and reactive patterns. You can get more discernment about what it is that you really need to respond to and when, like phone calls. You don't have to check your email, every 15 minutes. You could check it a couple of times a day. That's been really shown to increase your awareness and attention rather than checking text all the time. You know, you could turn your texting, the noise that you hear when you get a new text or an email, big distractions, and give yourself discipline. When I say discipline, I'm really talking about how do you teach yourself to be where you want to be. It's not about harsh punishment at all. It's about rewards. So discipline is give yourself a reward and celebrate when you do something that's taking you in the direction that you want to go. So Rick Hansen likes to say, you know, if you're tending the garden of your mind and body, yes, you are pulling weeds. You know, you're getting rid of some of the habits that don't work for you, but even more importantly, you're planting flowers. And this is where the rubber meets the road. You're creating new neural circuitry and new connections in your mind and body that are going to take you where you want to go moment by moment. It's not a big leap, it's one moment at a time. So that's my advice, is to really focus on what you can do and what's already here. So maybe you're already good at something. You're already good at exercise, or you're already good at your diet, or you're already good at social engagement with the people at work. You're a really good people person. So you want to focus on the things that are working for you just as much as criticizing yourself for what's not working for you. So it's not really motivating. And he also means, by taking in the good, that when you are in the moment, you're really savoring all the sensations of that moment. So this is a mindfulness practice to actually enjoy your food, the taste of your food, or really, like when you're looking at a client, really see something nourishing about them, their smile or the twinkle in their eye, or when you're riding your bike to work, or you're walking to work, or you're driving to work, maybe there's a beautiful sunrise, or you could see a bird up in the tree. So you're really like living your life in the moment, really savoring the moment. The more you pay attention to that, the more you'll be in the moment. So you can actually train yourself to come back to the moment by focusing on what's good. What am I grateful for? What do I appreciate? Really powerful tool, really simple. You could do it multiple times a day. So my goal overall in training people in mindfulness and training myself is to increase the power of my inner observer, we could call it. I get a lot of wisdom out of that, and then shift that inner observer into an inner ally, where I'm actually really being with myself as though I'm a mentoring to myself or a coach to myself, so that those skills that we might have with a friend or a child or a client, we turn those on ourselves so that we actually become this wise and compassionate leader. We could be a wise and compassionate employer. We could be a wise and compassionate person in the work world, so that we can really make a difference in what inspires us and drives us to get up every day. You know, whatever it is your profession is, you can really take your energy in a positive direction by being more in this state inside of yourself. So these states, as we train in mindfulness, become traits. So that's the beauty of neuroplasticity, is we're not stuck, and we're never going to be the same. Our self is evolving through the course of our life. We can sit back and let it happen, or we can be proactive, and we can make ourselves the leader, the employer, the mother, the parent that we want to be. And all these traits are totally capacities that come from deep mindfulness training over years and years and years and years. And like I said, you can get those benefits in just a couple of weeks if you start now, but don't beat yourself up if you don't do it every day. That's the thing. You need to stay with it, remind yourself, oh yeah, I feel better when I do these awareness practices. That's why I want to keep doing them. So keep focusing on the rewards rather than on the lack. Because in the long run, it's not what happens in our day or in our life, our conditioning, our past experience. It's how we deal with it, how we relate to it that matters. So yeah, so if we have a hard day, yeah, sure, call up a friend, or speak to a person at work who's not treated you nicely. Do the things that you need to do in order to make sense of what's happening, rather than just being a victim to it. And I think that's the power of mindfulness, is to be more authentic, to be more empowered, to be more courageous, to be more capable. And if you really want to dive into this more, you can come to my workshop in May, and we'll actually give you some hands-on practices to try out with a group of people. And because it's hard for me to transmit all this through a webinar, but I hope that I inspired you somehow today to do more and be more of what you really want in your life. So Joy, I'm ready for questions, if there's any out there, or any comments.
There are some, yes, questions and comments, and thank you. You know, just as you were going through the webinar, I just was noticing my breath, slowing it down. I feel so much more refreshed than I did when we started, and focused. And so I know this stuff works, and I'm really excited about your workshop. And one person did ask the question, and I'm thinking you might cover this in the workshop, but do you have any other like 2 to 5 minute like little tricks that people can do at work to slow down, get focused, become mindful?
Yeah, there are a lot actually. So I would start with the body. I think the body is really a good portal into mindfulness. It's kind of counterintuitive because of the name mindfulness. And so like we did, you know, just tuning into your feet and your seat and your breath, that's a really good one. But even standing up, and we can do this in the workshop, there's some like brain gym exercises where if you do, maybe you've heard of the cross crawl, and if you live around Mount Shasta, you know about skiing and cross-country skiing, or even runners. When you're doing those exercises, you're actually going from the left and the right side of the body. So even jumping jacks are a body-centered approach to coming back to the present moment. Now, you might not feel comfortable doing jumping jacks in your office. Maybe you do if you work at home, or you can go outside, you work out in the field, for instance. But any kind of crossing over exercise is going to link up the left side and the right side of the brain. And Donna Eden, she's an energy psychologist. She has some good ones that you can look up. They're called hookups. And you actually cross your left arm over your right and put your palms together, and then you cross your right leg over your left. And that's actually another way to integrate the left and the right. And I didn't talk much about that today because we didn't have as much time. Some other ones, let's see, tapping. So you can tap, even if you just want to tap the top of your head. Tapping, typically, the best source of tapping is called the Emotional Freedom Technique, or EFT. And you can look that up online. And there's a whole sequence that you can go through to bring you back to the present moment. It's really good for dealing with difficult emotions, things that kind of get you off track from where you want to be. Not so much that you want to change the emotion, but you want to be with it and sort of embrace it a little bit and work with it in a compassionate and attend to it way. How's that for now? I could go on and on.
Good. No, we have a couple other questions. So, and I want to encourage people too, now's your time to click on the question box and type in a question or a comment if you have one. But this came in, Kristen. Here's I'm just going to read this one. It says, I noticed I fell asleep by the end. Is that a problem? I noticed I was afraid at first to go into my body. I spend most of my time trying not to feel my body because of the pain. Any tips or advice?
Yeah, so a couple of things there. One is it's really common for people to fall asleep when they start meditating, or even if they've been meditating for a long time. And we could question why, or we could just assume there's some tiredness there, some exhaustion, and often people who are hypervigilant have a hard time turning off. And so when they finally do turn off, they go into sleep. And so that could be something that changes over time. So in other words, just because you're falling asleep or feeling sleepy today doesn't mean that'll be true tomorrow, or a month from now, or a year from now. So what we're doing is we can't stop the waves. This is John Kabat-Zinn, but we can learn to surf. So you're surfing the waves of tiredness and exhaustion, and it sounds like, or just tuning out, it sounds like you're also surfing the waves of pain. And my suggestion for pain, and I realize it is hard to go into the body when there's a lot of pain, is to do it gradually and to do it with some supervision. The mindfulness-based stress reduction course that I mentioned was actually developed for pain, and it's a really good course. You can sign up online for a guided course, and I would go to emindful.com for a guided course. You could do that from anywhere in the world. And there's also a free online resource for the mindfulness-based stress reduction, but you would guide yourself. And that one's hard to spell, but I'm going to spell it. It's PALOUSE, Palouse, mindfulness.com. And they have a free mindfulness-based stress reduction course. So you can start accessing that. But if it's hard to do it on your own, I would definitely recommend doing it with a practitioner and getting some guidance so that you can titrate your reentry into your body. Freedom from Pain is another one with Stephen Levine. He's a really good somatic practitioner. So lots of things you can do to be with the body and embrace the difficulty of pain and notice how it changes, that it's not who you are and it's not something that stays the same. So I'm sorry that you go through that, and I hope that you find some relief.
Thanks, Kristen. Here's another question. Does Kristen have recommendations for practitioners in our area? Let me start by answering that because I'm going to recommend you, Kristen.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you in the spot of recommending yourself, but I know you have a private practice and you really support people in calming, mindfulness. You've studied Hakomi, and you have a lot of body-centered therapies, if you will, that help people. And then, of course, the workshop. But so the question was, do you have recommendations for practitioners in our area? And we tend to be careful at Jedi not to get too specific. So how would someone choose a practitioner to work with? Maybe that's a good way to answer that question.
Yeah, I would definitely look for the body piece, because talking therapy is great, because just being listened to is really helpful. But I have trained in the somatic traditions, and there's a lot of powerful healing that happens when we look at the whole person and the whole body. And there's a lot of stuff online, so I recommend some of the stuff that you can find, those resources that I just mentioned. I would go to the Palouse mindfulness.com if that's something that's comfortable for you. But I have to say, having a relationship with someone is actually very healing and very powerful, and it can transport your practice in leaps and bounds rather than just doing it on your own. That's better than nothing, but I think working with an individual who's really trained in it can take you to whole new levels. It's a really powerful way to transform your experience.
Okay, and okay, then there's one more question, and this person is saying that I've noticed that I've been fuzzy in my brain lately. How might these practices help me?
Yeah, so fuzzy brain, there can be some medical components to that. So I would definitely look into that if you haven't already. It's often associated with, chronic fatigue and food allergies, and I've experienced that myself. So fuzzy brain is a real difficult thing to deal with, and so I would make sure to get just some reassurance that there's nothing medical going on. And then what we're doing when we're training is we're choosing a focal point, let's say. So in a breath awareness practice, we're actually using the breath as a focal point. And over time, we'll notice that when we sit with the breath, the mind wanders. And we have to bring it back over and over and over, just like the puppy in the picture. And the good news is that it's the actual act of bringing the mind back to the focal point that gives us the exercise and strengthens the muscle of attention and gives us the juice that we get from those good neurotransmitters. So that's where the change happens, is when we have a fuzzy fuzzy brain, we choose to focus on something, the mind goes away, we bring it back over and over and over. So we don't berate ourselves for having an unruly mind, because everyone does, a wild mind, but we actually are grateful for this opportunity to strengthen that muscle. And it may take a while. So here's another question for you, is notice when your mind isn't fuzzy. So there may be places or things that you like to do or people where you actually feel pretty clear. And so then you can grow those. And so starting to notice that there's some variation in the quality of your mind, and just starting to name the quality of your mind. You could even rate the quality of your mind, you know, from 0 to 10, how fuzzy do I feel right now? And then you may actually start to notice, oh, well, I feel fuzzy when I'm in this room with, you know, this computer on, or I feel less fuzzy when I'm out at the lake walking my dog, or, you know, you may notice that there's some variation in that, and then you can start going for those experiences that are going to get you out of that fuzzy mind. But that's a tough one, and that's going to take some time to grow out of, we could call it. I hope that's helpful.
Very helpful. Thank you. Okay, one more comment. Great work, Kristen. I love it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Joy.
Yeah,
and
no, this came in from one of the listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another thank you. So we're getting some comments and appreciation for you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to ask you a little bit more about the workshop in a moment when we get there, but I did just want to remind everyone that we do a lot here at the WBC at Jedi, and you can join our mailing list at info@e-jedi.org. You can contact us directly, but we are excited about our upcoming workshops and these webinars, but also we just love working one-on-one with you because it can be real custom. So people come to us with all sorts of business ideas. We do feasibility studies, or you have an existing business and you're wanting to shift up your marketing or get your books in order. Those are the types of things we can do one-on-one with you as well. And so on the next slide, we also are a membership organization. We love our members. It's only $25 a year, and that gives you extreme discounts on all our classes and all our workshops, and a really cool mug, as well as a business deduction and a feeling of satisfaction. You know, we are a nonprofit, and those $25 a year memberships really support us in our grant funding, and also just some of the costs that it takes to run this incredible program. So what's coming at WBC at Jedi? Our next webinar is May 10th. And it's on social media opportunities and options for small businesses. It is free. You can go to our website, e-jedi.org, to register for that. And then we have some upcoming workshops, including Invest in Your Life and Finances with Renee Gatrue. That's Mondays this month, April. Then, Kristen, your workshop on stress awareness for business owners starts Tuesday, May 2nd. It's a 3-part series. And we talked a little bit about it, but who's it for? Who's going to benefit the most from it? And maybe just a quick little plug. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of good science on how to be resilient and how to make change, positive change. So I really want to bring that in and touch back into mindfulness. So it's really good for anyone who wants to kind of keep growing and keep developing their personal skills, professional skills, and become more and more potent and effective in what their vision and their mission is. So I'm really excited about this one because it's bringing in some of the science of positive change.
Wonderful. And once again, that $20 for 3 sessions, that's with your Jedi membership, super discounted. What a great service. So I hope people take advantage of it. Yeah. All of our workshops are so much value, and just for a nominal cost, because we are a nonprofit and we're here to really support our business owners in a multitude of ways. And so down to the next workshop, which is all about money and tracking it. So it's tracking your business income and expense on Monday, May 15th. And then actually the following Monday, there is a cash flow workshop also with Padge Kane. And then we're starting up another 6-week course on It's Your Business, which many people have taken it. In fact, most of our Jedi members love to take the 6-week course. We've offered it in 12 weeks, but we're condensing it this time so that people in a short amount of time, just about a month and a half, can write a business plan and expand their business, get started, make sure they're on the right track. We cover so much, so it's definitely, you want to be mindful when you come to the class. We'll stay focused. I think during the break, Kristen, we'll do a few breathing exercises so we can really get a lot done in a short time.
Great, Joy.
Yeah, definitely. It comes with business planning software. For the first time, we're offering business planning software with the class. All right,
Great.
so if you're interested in any of these, give us a call at Jedi. At the end of this webinar, when you log out, there's a survey. It's going to ask you what you thought of the webinar. Let us know. And also, what do you want next? We have a series coming up specifically for you, but we can cover a lot of topics in these webinars. Let us know what you want. Kristen, it has been enlightening. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I love working with you, Joy, and thanks to everyone for sticking it out with us. Really appreciate your attention today.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.